Hey everyone, it's AJ Grossman. I'm the wax painter, and welcome to the wonderful world of my studio. The birds are quiet. Okay. Today we're going to talk about value. I know it's like a hard topic to explain. I will try my best. It is, let's say this. I have a lot of people who come to me and they want to learn how to paint in encaustic, or they want to learn how to paint in the abstract, and they have no painting experience whatsoever, and that's okay. And when I encourage them to take a traditional painting class where they're going to paint a still life, the pushback is always, well, I can't draw and I can't do this. But what I really want to explain to them is that you're going to learn a lot about color theory, or hopefully the teacher I'm sending them to, not just any class. And I know a lot of people don't like to take color theory classes or to take all that because, you know, people want to get into the medium. And anyway, it's really important to understand that. And when you work with color a lot, and I've worked with color from the textile industry, you start to learn about not only color theory, but value of color. And value of color is what the eye usually sees. And that makes a big difference in the paintings. So I took a hiatus from painting, and I've been quilting a lot, and I noticed in my quilting groups, the ladies are always like, you know, my quilt doesn't pop. And the first thing people say is, well, put in the opposite color. It's a lot more than that. A lot of times that will work, but a lot of times it's the same color, but it has a different value. So when you're painting and you add white to a color, you make a hue. And when you add dark to a color, you make a tint. And that's really important. And when I used to paint in oils, I would have my palette set up, and I would always have my 3 primary colors and black and white, or black and Payne's gray. I like Payne's gray. And I was constantly mixing color. When I work with encaustic, it's in a tin and it's melted, and I set up my colors, and then because my palette's filled with all my melted colors, I don't have any room to mix color. That's more me of being lazy, or me of just not setting up that secondary palette to mix a color, or forgetting. And I actually normally keep an entire tin of just white to mix color. Okay, so you can also change with encaustic the value of a color by making what I call a glaze, meaning you're diluting it with encaustic medium. But true value of color has to do with a color that you add white or dark to. So I always pull out my color card. My color card is, this color card is made from oil paints. And here's all my primary colors. So the outer ring is one value of color, and I'll show you how that works. And then I have the secondary, these are the hues. They're made with white, and then down here, these are tints, and I believe they're mixed with Payne's gray. They could be mixed with black. I made this color card many, many years ago. There is an old 2-part video on my YouTube channel where I make a color card using encaustic. It was like 200 degrees in my studio that day. I should really remake it. I may make a class on it because it is really important. So, I had everything set up. I'll be right back. Remember when my other video, I made a color story from here? Here's my color story. This was one of the paintings I made from it. It's okay. It's just technically okay. But all the colors, they're actually on different planes. There's wax between them. But this painting looks kind of flat. There's no oomph to it. And the reason because is all the colors, except for this one, all have the same value. So how do I know that? We have a handy old iPhone around, and we're gonna snap a picture, and we're gonna change the picture to monotone. It may say grayscale. We don't want black and white. We want grayscale or monotone. So when I take a picture of it, except for, this is the yellow, but take that color out, what do you see? everything looks the same. So my eye can't tell the difference on all the colors. There's nothing wrong with the painting. It's technically okay, but it's not where I want the painting to be because I didn't change. Everything is the same value or the same weight of color. And it happens. I see it all the time with students. I do it myself. We go and we pick our colors and they're always in the same value. When we paint, we need to change the value because that changes light and dark. And our eye has to perceive light and dark. It moves the painting forward and back. Even in abstract painting, you need to have that movement. If you're painting from realism, it's a little different. You have a light source. Okay, so let me show you another painting. Okay, so this is how I start all the paintings, like this. Nothing, right? It is not. It is nothing. So now that painting started the same way as the painting I just showed you. So now when I took the picture of the painting, no, that's not the painting. Okay, here it is. It pretty much looks all the same. You can't tell which is the orange or which is the green or which is the yellow. The only thing you can see is some of the lightness from the light blue, and it's more because the light's being diffused because I didn't scrape it back, and just the red because it's the darkest color. I think it's the brown, but everything else looks the same. There's no variety. Here's another painting that I did. I love bright colors. I live in South Florida. I love pop art. If you ever look at pop art, it's black, white, usually, or negative space, and super bright colors. There's no mixing of colors. It's orange and pinks and yellows, solid color. They are all always in the same value. So I took out all my bright colors and I'm painting away and I end up with this big mess. Now, some people like this. I personally don't. I don't have good negative space, but I also just use every color. Even my pink is weighted the same as the orange and the red. Everything's the same. So when I take a picture, let's look at the picture. Here it is. This area with all these colors, there's not even a variety of grayscale. They just all look the same. So it's just not working for me. And even look, I tried to work on whatever. It's an experiment. It's a process. Okay. So back to this painting. So now I really like my palette and I'm like, okay, I'm going to approach it again. And so this is a work in process, set up the same way, but you can see it's a little different. I have two greens now. I have the original green. This one I actually diluted with encaustic medium. So it's like a glaze, but it's the same color, but I changed the value. Same here. I had this orange for some reason, when I added white, I got this yellow. Here, this green, actually, this was the green too. I actually added a little Payne's gray to it. So I have this green, and now this green, okay? So now as I work on this, the same thing with the yellow, I ended up, I think that's a different yellow, now that I think about it. The brown is the same. I haven't changed the brown yet. So now when I take the picture, and like I said, this is just the beginning. I think it's this one. Okay. So remember the green? Look now. It's a dark gray and a light gray. Now my eye sees differently. That's what value is. So I know it's hard when people say, I don't understand when you talk about value. I don't get it. It's kind of like the lightness and the darkness. So on the color wheel, this will be when I show you the picture. So here's our color wheel. This one was made in oil painting. This was a class that I took, and before we can paint anything, we had to make a color wheel. And this was the most valuable thing I've ever learned in all my years of taking classes. And I've taken painting classes before, but this particular class, the teacher made us do a color wheel, and it's the game changer. So you can see on the outside, so all my primary colors, here's my yellow, here's my red, here's my cobalt, and then you make your secondary and tertiary colors. All the same value. Now, of course, yellow is always going to show up in the photograph heavier than your violet because it just is. The second row of colors are the same colors we mixed here and added white. Okay, we changed the value. These colors here, I added, I believe it could have been black or violet, and now I get a tint. So each color, here's the pure yellow, added with white, added with black. Okay, so I have the color, the hue, the tint. Okay. So you could see, like, this could be if the sun was shining, it's going to bring it forward. This could be if it was in the shadow. And when you take the picture and you turn it to your grayscale, your black and white, and here it is, that was the yellow. You can't tell the difference. Tell me where the green and the red and all the other colors are, except for the yellow that you know it's there because it's such a light color. Every color on the outer ring looks exactly the same because they're the same value. Now you change it on the second ring, which is the hue. Now they all look similar too because they're in the same value. That's how I know I made a good color wheel, was because my values on the secondary stayed the same, but there's a difference between each color. And then the last color, the tints, which adding the black or the gray, and you see they're almost identical too. That's why my teacher said that I made a great color wheel, because not only did I mix the colors, but each ring had almost the same amount of value in it. And that's the important part. It takes practice. You have to learn how to see. Well, let me show you an example of how you learn what this class is. I'm not teaching this class, just so you know, but. And for some reason, I took this class like 8 years ago. I can't find my original paintings. I think the teacher uses mine as an example. Okay, so here's your still life. This is the students. And every painting, and you'll see a lot of painters do an underpainting. They'll do sepia or something. And in this particular one, you learn and you paint the whole week, and everything you paint is in monochromatic palette, because you're training yourself to adjust and see light by using the same color, and that way you can start distinguishing the different values. So this is probably the original color. Here's the tint to make it darker. Here's the hue to make it lighter. Here's a shadow. And you start mixing all those, and now you're getting all this movement, and your eye is moving to see the value. It's not about the color, it's about the value. And here it is if you were to paint it. So the next step is you paint another monotone, and then you can then put your color in. And that's how a lot of painters who paint realism sometimes paint. So that way the eye sees of where it's going to be. So here you know your light source is from here. Here's your highlight. Here's your shadow, all of that. But when it comes to abstract, sometimes people throw all that theory out the window, and you can't. Yes, it's one thing to say, oh, I'm getting super duper dark and I need to put in my opposite here to pop it. And you know, I'm using a lot of violet, and if I put some yellow, a yellow dot in, it'll pop it. And that's just basic. But when you start working with the values of it, and all of this was only made from 3 colors. That was it. It wasn't made from anything else but 3 colors, white and black. Look how many colors are there. So on my YouTube channel, there's a really old video. It must have been 200 degrees in my studio that day, and I just winged it. I didn't record. I recorded it like in one shot. I'm going to actually redo that and develop that onto an online class, because what happens with encaustic is people see the solid encaustic wax, and they don't realize that, you know, it's not like, oh, my camera's moving. It's not like a tube of paint. Does that make sense? So, you know, it's like, oh, I could squeeze out a little bit of tube of paint here. And I know when I set up my palette and my working station, similar to how I worked in oils for traditional painting, even though I'm working in the abstract, I produce better work. For whatever reason, it just works. And it is because my color wheel is there in front of me all the time as my reminder. And now I always have to remind myself, the one container that I put on there, I have a container of white encaustic always on my palette. I don't tend to go too dark because I tend to get muddy and ruddy. If you mix all your colors together, you get mud. So to prevent me from getting that dark, I don't keep Payne's Gray or Black on my palette, but I do keep the white, and I do keep a tint of clear encaustic as well. So I hope that this video helped. Color theory is so important. Value of color is so important, regardless of your style of painting. This is applicable to oil paint, acrylic, watercolor. Whenever I start a new medium, the first thing I do is I take the 3 primary colors and I make myself a color wheel, and I start mixing the color like this, so then I can see what it's working with. And a lot of times I'll be painting something and I look at this and I'm like, I really need this color now because things are getting too flat. Or it is the best tool that you can have in your art studio. So look for a class on color theory. Not everything is just about painting a technique. Honestly, that's the easy part. And when I see people struggle, myself struggle, it's all because I forget about value of color. So ask me questions below. Look out for those old videos, which I will probably redo. Of course, it's only 100 degrees here, so it's another hot day to be working in wax. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. The little bell will notify you for an update. Please ask questions. If you would like to learn anything about encaustic painting, let me know in the comments. I'll see you soon. Remember to wax on.